Welcome to Unseen Poland, where we uncover the hidden treasures of the Polish mountains. This is a story of harmony with nature, whispers of history and human experiences woven into a mosaic that often lingers in the shadows. In the south of Poland lies a city many travelers pass through, never knowing its quiet charm. Bielsko-Biała, where the foothills of the western Beskids meet the legacy of centuries-old architecture. From above, the city spreads out like a patchwork of red rooftops and colorful townhouses, surrounded by the gentle curves of forested hills. Among its landmarks stands the Cathedral of St. Nicholas, a Gothic church first mentioned in the 15th century. Its tall spire, rebuilt in the early 20th century, has silently watched over generations. This is a gateway to the mountains, a place for those seeking landscapes beyond the ordinary. Bielsko-Biała is a city where two worlds meet, the peaceful charm of the Beskids foothills and the proud legacy of Silesian industry. In the old town, narrow lanes wind past Art Nouveau buildings. Before the war, they housed weavers' shops and artisan workshops. Today, the same facades look down on people, rediscovering the beauty of small manufactories and cozy cafes. The city's architecture reflects the elegance of another time. Facades with ornate cornices, wrought iron balconies, and intricate details that give the streets the feel of a little Vienna. Many of these buildings were raised around the turn of the 20th century, when the city was alive with industrial and commercial growth. As you walk through the old town, you'll spot charming details at every step: statues tucked into niches, decorative fountains, and sculptures drawn from mythology and local legend. These small touches create a mood that's hard to find elsewhere, a place where history and art are woven into every corner. Just a few minutes from here begins the edge of the Silesian Beskids Landscape Park, a protected area where ancient beech and fir forests still stand. Their green wall separates the city from the mountains, a boundary that both welcomes and humbles. For over 100 years, this has been the place where locals come in search of silence and space. On the city's outskirts, the cable car to Szyndzielnia begins its slow climb. The cabins glide above valleys, rooftops of old summer houses, and the traces of former horse trails. When it opened in the 1950s, it became a bold symbol, proof that technology and landscape could coexist. It was one of the first gondola lifts in Poland, with steel suspension cables and cabins carrying dozens of passengers each hour. Seen from inside, it's a journey through layers of time, from old Bielsko to the modern ridges of the Beskids. The gondola stops nearly 1,000 meters above sea level. For many, it marks their first step into a wider world. Up here, on the steel platform, the air feels different, crisp and clear. On one side, Bielsko-Biała stretches out in neat quarters. On the other, the vastness of the Beskid Mountains. Forests spill across the valleys in sweeping waves of green. It's the kind of view that can change your plans, make you want to linger, step off the beaten path, and seek out the places no guidebook ever mentions. In recent years, mountain biking has found a second home here. Dozens of kilometers of trails weave through the forest, from gentle family routes to steep technical descents. Riders come not just for the adrenaline, but for the quiet moment between the climbs. Side paths break away from the main trails, leading deep into the forest. Here, the pace slows, and each step becomes its own quiet experience. Old beech trees line the slopes, their pale bark standing out against the rich green undergrowth. In spring, wild garlic carpets the ground. In summer, thistle and knotweed flowers bloom across the glades. Some of these trails trace the footsteps of old trade routes and shepherd paths. In the years between the wars, this is where the first hikers from Silesia would wander, founding mountain shelters and painting the first trail markings. The tradition of route marking in the Beskids began right here back in the 1920s. During World War II, partisan groups found refuge in the forests of Szyndzielnia, hiding in natural shelters and moving through a web of woodland paths. Today, those same trails lead us to places where history and nature meet, where the landscape quietly remembers the generations who came before. Near the summit, for more than 100 years, stands the mountain shelter of the Polish Tourist and Sightseeing Society on Szyndzielnia. It was destroyed by fire during the Second World War and later rebuilt. To this day, it remains a refuge for those seeking simplicity and warmth after a long journey. A modest fee, around 180 zloty per night for 2 people, buys something far greater: unforgettable moments in the heart of the mountains. Wooden benches, steaming tea and quiet conversations around the tables are part of a tradition that has endured for generations. Inside, you can taste classic Highlander fare, from tangy sour cabbage soup to freshly fried potato pancakes. And for dessert, homemade cakes and a hot cup of tea with raspberry syrup, a flavor you'll never forget. Beyond the main trails, life unfolds in ways that haven't changed as much as you might think. In small farms passed down through generations, people still try to blend tradition with the demands of the modern world. Back in the 1930s, most of the villages here survived on sheep farming and modest plots of land. During the war, many were forced to exile or sent into labor. Some returned, others left the valleys for good. Today, the homes once filled with farmers and carpenters are finding new life as guest houses and craft workshops. And on the doorstep of these buildings, traces of their past still remain, scratched-in dates of construction and old wooden beams that have witnessed other times. Not far from here stretches Lake Żywieckie, an artificial reservoir spanning more than 10 square kilometers, created in the 1960s along the Sol River. Originally built for flood protection and energy generation, it soon became a place of rest and recreation. The lake filled the valley where several villages once stood. Even today, when water levels drop, you can still glimpse old walls and stone foundations, silent traces of the past. Over the years, its shores have drawn sailors, anglers and travelers. In summer, the lake hosts regattas and local festivals. In winter, part of the surface freezes over, transforming the water into a new kind of landscape. For many who live nearby, the lake has become a symbol of change, a reminder of how landscape and history can shape one another. Now let's hear from Miss Agnieszka, a lifelong resident of the Gorce region, for whom these mountains are not just home, but a daily source of inspiration. It's well worth listening to what she has to say and to see what she wants to share about this remarkable place.
Szanowni Państwo, witamy Was w najpiękniejszym miejscu Małopolski. W zielonych płucach naszych Gorców, gdzie możecie na szlakach napotkać najpiękniejszą roślinność. A jeżeli szlaki, to zapraszamy Was do zdobycia 4 wież. Wieży na Magórkach, wieży na Gorcu, na Koziarzu i tutaj na Lubaniu, skąd rozciąga się najpiękniejszy widok. Będąc tutaj u nas na szlakach, możecie zdobyć cudną odznakę, pamiątkowy kubeczek, z którego będziecie korzystali przez wszystkie szlaki, wędrując tutaj u nas, gdzie z czystych potoków napijecie się cudownej źródlanej wody. A kiedy już obejdziecie część naszych szlaków, zwiedzicie wszystkie 4 wieże i wieczorem przy dobrej kolacji, przy pysznym gorczańskim jedzeniu będziecie chcieli coś jeszcze znaleźć, coś ciekawego odwiedzić, włączcie naszą aplikację Be Active. Tutaj będziecie mieli całą kwintesencję informacji o szlakach, których jeszcze nie znacie, o miejscach, gdzie można cudownie wypocząć, o przepysznym jedzeniu, a także o muzeach i ciekawostkach, które jeszcze czekają Was w Gorcach w gminie Ochotnica Dolna. A jak już obejdziecie wszystkie szlaki gorczańskie na nogach, zdobędziecie wszystkie 4 wieże, zapraszamy tym razem na rower, na kolażówkę, na cudowne trasy dedykowane Katarzynie Niewiadomej, naszej mistrzyni świata, która pochodzi z gminy Ochotnica Dolna. To właśnie tutaj sprawdzicie swoje wydolności, zdolność do jeżdżenia na rowerze i będziecie mogli podkręcić swoje zdrowie i tym razem wyjechać stąd na kolażówce. Kochani, jak przejedziecie już wszystkie trasy na kolażówkach, trasy Kasi Niewiadomej, naszej mistrzyni świata, obejdziecie wszystkie szlaki. Tu w gminie Ochotnica Dolna zdobędziecie 4 wieże z aplikacją Be Active. To zapraszamy Was na jeszcze jeden cudowny szlak. Historyczny szlak kultury wołoskiej, który zaprowadzi Was do wspaniałej bacówki, po pyszne jedzenie, najpyszniejsze tutaj w Gorcach. Zapraszamy serdecznie.
Between the ridge lines, flocks of sheep graze on meadows that have looked much the same for generations. From spring to autumn, shepherds lead their animals to mountain pastures, where small wooden huts, known as bacówki, are built. These simple shelters are used for cheese-making and for storing supplies. The tradition of making sheep's cheese in this region goes back centuries. In the past, almost every family kept sheep, and the knowledge of how to turn milk into cheese was passed down from one generation to the next. Today, some of these customs live on in the hands of a few shepherds who still follow the old ways. Inside the wooden huts, fresh milk is heated in cast iron cauldrons and slowly transformed into soft white cheese. Once shaped, the cheese is left to mature in special aging rooms. Its taste is simple and strong, a reminder of mountain life and of a time when almost every village had its own bacówka. Today, oscypek and other sheep's cheeses have become symbols of the region, their aroma and shape familiar to anyone who's ever walked these mountains. In the valleys and on the slopes, shaped and reshaped over the decades, people still live who have been rooted here for generations. During the interwar years, the region saw slow but steady growth. Roads were laid, new schools opened, and the first mountain shelters appeared. After the war, many farms were nationalized, and some families were resettled as borders and boundaries shifted. Today, in those same old houses live the descendants of those who returned. Some run agritourism farms, others keep traditional craft workshops. More and more young people are arriving, drawn by the promise of a simpler life closer to nature. On the walls of old barns, you can still see faded dates carved a century ago, and in the parish books, the names of families who shaped this land. On the southern shore of Lake Żywieckie lies Pietrzkiewicz, a village with roots stretching back to the Middle Ages. Once a small shepherd settlement, it gradually became part of a wider network of villages surrounding the town of Żywiec. At the heart of the village stands the Church of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. This neo-Gothic structure, built in the early 20th century, still towers over the landscape. Its tall spire and red brick facades visible from far across the valley. Inside, stained glass windows and carved wooden altars speak of the village's past and the patrons who helped shape it. Around the church lies the old market square and a cemetery where gravestones from over a century ago still stand. On feast days and parish celebrations, the area comes alive. Villagers gather in procession, and the sound of bells echoes across the valley. It's a place where tradition is still felt, and where respect for the past lives on in every detail. For the people of Pietrzkiewicz and the nearby villages, the church is more than a place of worship. It's a symbol of community and shared history, woven through generations of life in these mountain valleys. As the Beskids fade into the distance, the road leads to Gorce, a mountain range that, for centuries, has remained just out of sight, away from the main trails. At the foot of these hills, in Ochotnica Dolna, stands a place where old traditions meet modern nature education. The Brama w Gorce Nature and Education Center invites visitors to explore the forests and glades of the region, starting with a path suspended several meters above the ground. This is one of the longest treetop walkways in Poland, stretching over 1,300 meters. From above, the forest opens like a living mosaic, beech and fir trees filtering sunlight, undergrowth teeming with life. Along the route, wooden sculptures of owls, lynxes and bears blend naturally into the landscape, silent reminders of the rare species that call these mountains home. At stops along the trail, visitors discover the rhythm of the forest and the deep roots of pastoral traditions that have shaped this land for generations. The walk ends at a viewing platform, offering a sweeping panorama of the Gorce Range and the Ochotnica Valley. From here, you see how nature and memory are woven into one story, a story of a place that has stayed true to itself through time. Inside the center, modern multimedia exhibitions bring the landscape to life, with interactive displays, documentary films, and virtual models showing the seasons in motion. Put on a VR headset and you can wander through a dense Gorce forest, hear birdsong all around you, and spot rare plants beneath your feet. Brama v Gorce welcomes everyone, adults fascinated by the Carpathians, teenagers discovering mountain heritage through technology, and children for whom sensory trails and workshops turn learning into play. It's a place where knowledge becomes an adventure, and where nature offers a quiet pause from the rush of everyday life. Perhaps that's why these mountains endure, because they offer a place where time stretches out and silence becomes its own kind of language. For those willing to step off the main road, the Beskids and Gorce reveal stories that can't be rushed, stories that wait patiently to be heard. In the next episode, we travel to the Rzemieckie foothills, a region at Poland's eastern edge where old wooden churches, forgotten villages, and a borderland of cultures come together to tell a tale as extraordinary as the mountains themselves.